Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today we are making something from Subnautica. I made one a while back, the little SAM container, the Jacksepticeye thing that they added into the game. I made one of those and didn't get a lot of views, but I thought it was a cool prop to make. And I thought, why not try and make something a bit more iconic in the game? And what's more iconic than the unofficial mascot, a Peeper? And I kind of looked at the variance between them because there's a couple of types of Peepers and things that look similar to Peepers, and I decided I was going to make the Arctic Peeper from the newer version, which is the Subnautica Below Zero, and figured let's use some WTF while we're at it. What the foam? You can buy it on Amazon. So today we are going to make an Arctic Peeper from Subnautica. Let's get to building. For this build, I wanted to use some sturdy foam that would hold its shape, so what better than some cosplay apprentice What the Foam. To start off the build, I found a 3D model on an Arctic Peeper using the program Sketchfab on my cell phone as a reference. Sometimes I just freehand out my patterns like this one, not always accurate, but close enough. Watching a live stream for Cosplay Apprentice the other day, and he bragged about this heat gun, so of course I had to get one. It may take me a while to get used to it. My old one was just flip a switch, turn a dial. This one actually has digital readings and all that stuff, so it's super cool. Heat the foam up and push it over something round. I use a glass dome off of my back porch light. You don't have to have an acrylic anvil dome thingy like some other people use, just need something round. Now I'm trying to figure out how to plug up the gaps in the foam, so I tape down the tail and then just freehand onto the foam my shape. Any adjustments I need to make, I'll do on my template that I have for you down in the description of this video. There are better, more accurate ways to do this, but with simple parts, I can usually just get it close just by eyeballing it. Assembly is pretty simple. The two large pieces have 45-degree angle cuts on them. The smaller parts are just straight cuts. I lay down some contact cement on all the edges and stick all the small pieces to one side and close it out. You see me use some super glue because I had to modify my triangles a little bit to fit properly. This will be fixed on the template, obviously. Then you just close up the other side. Now I'm knocking off the sharp edges and giving my little Peeper a more rounded over look. Because I'm not taking off too much material, I'm just going straight to the stone bit instead of using a sanding drum. This is the dorsal fins on my little Peeper. I drew them directly onto some 2mm EVA and then added some thin strips of the same material to make the fin spines. To make its little beak, I glued together 2 layers of 6mm EVA and carved out the shape. Be careful while cutting bevels on small parts like this. A majority of my hand scars come from the blade slipping on small parts that I lowered my focus while cutting because I thought it was simple. Instead of cutting out the circle, beveling the edge, and then gluing it back in, I thought it would be quicker to just hit it with the stone bit on my Dremel. This is not the easiest technique, and I could mess it up at this point if I don't steady my hand. I have had a lot of practice with the rotary tool and thought I could probably do this without messing it up. I did 3 coats of Plasti Dip to smooth everything out and give me a sturdy seal for this next layer of paint. Then I did a base coat of the body in some light blues that I had and spray painted a mix of yellow and orange for the eyes once the blue layer was dry. Now to really sell this prop, I had to put a good paint job on the finishing. I decided to go with some various folk art and apple barrel acrylic paints. I did use all of these colors and had to mix them a little to get closer to my reference material. My colors on the final piece are off just a little bit, but I'm happy with the detailing. I do the iris first so that I can pull my brush to the middle. Eyes have wrinkles in them where it contracts to dilate for light. These wrinkles are what looks like colored lines in the iris. So I just vary shades of orange and yellow till I'm happy with it and use the black to cover the pupil and the edge of the iris. After all of it is dry, I added some white highlights on top. My reference image wasn't very detailed on the fish's skin, so I dabbed on some shades of blue and then came back over with lighter colors with a sponge to add texture. I also hand painted on some body markings. I try to stay close to my reference, but don't stress too much about getting it perfect. The joy of making is that you can be picky as you want to be. I could definitely sit here for a couple of hours adding little details, but ain't nobody got time for that. I wanted to show you a mistake I made. In previous builds with different paints, I used clear coat nail polish to add a gloss to the eyes. When I did this on the plaid paints, it actually pulled the paint off. I don't know if it was because the paint wasn't fully set or what, but it destroyed the eye, and then I had to spend another hour repainting it again. So don't get discouraged when you mess up. Stuff happens. Just learn from it. Through the miracle of editing, my mistakes usually just get erased, but I do make them. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, pretty pleased with the way it turned out. My color is just a little bit off, obviously. I did a little bit of extra texturing and things like that to it to give it a little bit more detail, but you could be very more specific to the original, or you could modify this one and make the top little fins here come out a little bit shorter and stubbier to do the original Peeper, but overall not too bad of a build. I did include my mistakes in there because I want you guys to kind of see that I don't always do things right the first time. It does take a lot of practice, and sometimes the things that I mess up on don't make it in the video. So that's why I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes so that you don't then do the same thing. So maybe you'll try and make one of these peepers yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to make adorable sea creatures that aren't real, but will probably haunt your dreams with those big old peepers. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. I didn't cook them, but I mean, you could probably take a nibble if he doesn't nibble you first.